I was lucky enough to play when we beat Burnley 1-0, and albeit it was their first team and they were in the Championship as well. But back in that sort of era, we very much used to park the bus, as they say now, and defend for our lives for 99.9% of the time. What was different about the performance the other night was it was one of the first times we played a top professional team in terms of the quality was against us, and we actually, the ball retention and things we had was incredible, and that was probably the most pleasing thing. It wasn't a hanging on kind of performance. We took the game to them, we were as good as them for large parts of the game, and obviously to score 5 goals against that level of opposition, all credit to the lads. And so in my mind it's up there with all the results we've had, certainly in the last 20 years while I've been involved in all the different facets of the football.
How important is it to get that experience against sides from elsewhere? Vitally
important. I know me and Paul have spoken to them about it from the outset, really, since we took over that. Not being disrespectful to the NLS or the Island Games, but we almost wanted that to be just come a supporting part of the support in the show, because we want to get to play these teams on a regular basis, at least once a month. That's what's going to make the players better, without a shadow of a doubt. You can win the Island Games, you can win the NLS, you can keep doing that over and over and over again, and the level of performance of our players might never get any better. Playing against that level of opposition, like Wolves under-23s who we beat earlier in the season, and now this game winning this, that's what's going to make our players better and give us the opportunity, hopefully, to kick on, maybe in the future end up with a team playing regularly in England, and ultimately, and the biggest aim, is to get players off the Isle of Man to professional clubs.
We'll come on to that a little bit later. Frank, you've been part of some quite successful Manx teams over the years, but how would you rate the team at the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely up there. I think you've got to applaud the kids and them stepping in, and it's been real good recently. And I think with you'd look at the likes of Sean Quay and Chris Bass and Julian and Johnny Myers, that kind of era. And I thought, when you look at it, you think, is there going to be anything past that once they kind of step out the Island team? What's going to come through? And I think there was kind of times where you thought, I don't think there's anything coming through. And all of a sudden now, this group of kids, and even the likes of Reese and Tom Wood, at the age of 22, 23, Steve Whitley, Sean Doyle, they've all just kind of stepped up now. And again, we've seen another breed on Wednesday night of the kids that are 17, 18 that got their chance. And I don't think Paul and Lee could have asked for anything more of them.
Well, of those younger players, how many of those could find themselves in the upcoming tournament in Anglesey?
Yeah, I think after Wednesday, a lot of them maybe could. They've all put their kind of hat in the ring to be picked there. I don't know, it just keeps everyone on their toes, and that's what, a competitive kind of squad, because there's no one down there thinking, oh, well, I'm going, because especially with all them playing so well on Wednesday night, Paul's got probably maybe now a group of 30 players he could pick from.
Well, that tournament gets underway on the 17th of May. Realistically, do we see the Isle of Man being in with a chance of winning?
I would like to think so, yeah. I think the Isle of Man should always go to the Island Games with being optimistic about being able to win the tournament. But, you don't know what sort of team that other Jersey, Guernsey and them are going to bring as well. But we're going to be in the mix, there's no doubt about that. You could say we're going to be favourites going into it. And hopefully the games we've had this year against your Wolves and your Brentford B team, hopefully they're the kind of games. Derry City was another. They're the games that are going to prepare us to go into this tournament, hopefully, and almost expect to win. And that can sometimes be the difference.
Is there any area that needs improvement at the moment before that tournament?
It's a difficult one, because obviously you always think there's areas to improve, always, but we've got to be realistic about the situation we find ourselves in. The clubs are still playing in games for their over here on the Isle of Man. There's trophies still to be won, so it would be unfair of me and Paul to expect to bring them in and do more work on where we feel there might be areas we can improve. It's a case now of us stepping out the way, letting them get on with the club stuff to let that come to a head, and then hoping that when we get back together we can sort of continue the momentum we got from the game the other night. And obviously this isn't just about the Island Games or the year after. It's about, we're looking at 3, 4, 5 years down the line where we can take them 17, 18-year-olds, and then we've got the 22-year-olds who'll be 27 at the peak of their careers. It's a long road, and so little tiny steps for us, and hopefully what we've done now is prepared us for that, and we'll see where we go when we arrive there.
Well, there's a busy time ahead this year. There's the interleague competition towards the end of the year, the prize being that you could play in the Regions Cup. Is that the biggest competition for the island at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's looking past the regions and looking past the interleague to get to the regions. That's what it'd be real good for us to. We've been there twice and we didn't qualify out of the first group stage, and I think that would be our real end goal. Would be to win the NLS, go with the England thing, and get past that and get to the kind of major tournament, because then you're playing against proper good opposition. But we've got to get through the Systems Cup first, as in we kind of overlook that sometimes and we just want to jump straight in and play for the England part, because I think we all know that we're good enough to be at that stage straight away, but we've got to get through the NLS Cup first.
Past the dog and duck.
Yeah.
What plans do you have for warm-up games ahead of the tournament in Anglesey?
Well, that's probably the final game. There is the potential, and I don't know whether this has been confirmed or yet, so I don't know whether I'm speaking out of turn.
I think it has.
We've been offered a game against Connah's Quay, who is second in the Welsh League, and they'll probably be in Europe again next year. And we played them in the summer. They're a fantastic team. They've offered us a game the Saturday before the Ireland Games actually starts. And to be honest with you, that'll probably be the best game we'll play that week. And so we felt, me and Paul spoke about it, and Steve, and we feel that it's important to take them games. Because like I said, we're trying to look beyond the Ireland Games and the NLS. As much as we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, we're aiming high, and so we took the game on. Obviously, it might have a little repercussions at the start of that week, but if we get through it and then we can go on and win, then it'll be great experience for the lads that travel away. So that'll be it. That'll be the last preparation game, the Connah's Quay one.
And the draw for that tournament's been made now. What do you make of it?
I think we've got kind of quite you'd say, an easier group with, I think it's Hitra and Alderney, and then obviously you're into the semis and the final, and so obviously you're going to come across your kind of like your Guernseys and your Jerseys, and probably obviously Yinnesmon, because we played Yinnesmon in the semis, or the last group game actually, in Gotland, and I think they were one of the best teams that we played all week. Okay, we got a bit of luck with their captain getting injured in the game. We went on to win it in the end. But I expect Yinnesmon to be very strong in their obviously the home tournament.
Well, we talked earlier a little bit about an island team going off island. There's been a post on the Isle of Man Football Association Facebook page this afternoon talking about the National League System Step 7 application. It's a long post. I'm not going to read it all because that would take far too long, but I will read a couple of lines from it. All IOM FA member clubs are considering the merits of the Isle of Man FA applying to the FA Leagues Committee by the end of the year in order for the Canada Life Premier League to become an NLS Step 7 league, season commencing 2020 to 2021. A move towards NLS Step 7 would give all Canada Life Premier League clubs the opportunity to apply to enter the FA Vase competition. Step 7 league club teams would also be able to apply for the Football Stadia Improvement Fund to assist in enhancing facilities, and further security for the Isle of Man FA national team's entry into the FA Interleague Cup would also be ensured if the IOM FA Canada Life Premier League became part of the NLS structure. Guys, what do we make of the Step 7 system?
That tells me that Corinthians want to put a stand behind the other goal. No, it's a step forward from where we find ourselves at the moment, definitely. To give clubs an opportunity, the champions or the runners-up, or however that's going to be structured, an opportunity to play in England's always going to be a step forward. It's a bit difficult for my situation sat here now as the coach of the senior team, because like I just said, we're aiming higher than that at the minute, and so our focus is obviously solely going to be there. But in terms of our players that sort of come to play for the Isle of Man team being given that opportunity, hopefully it will have a positive effect if it gets over the line. I think it's still got to be voted on, Tony? Or?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, so if it gets over the line, it'll be positive in that for us. The problems that it could lead to is maybe extra games throughout the season, which makes it more difficult for us to train and plan our own games against the opposition like Brentford, Derry, Wolves. But, anything that allows our players to go off island and play has got to be a positive step forward, because we've moaned about it for enough years. So, I don't want to get too down on the idea. Hopefully it'll be a positive step in the right direction.
And what about playing in the FA Vase? Is that something that would be a coup for many of the island players?
Yeah, I think it'll be very good, obviously, to, like Lee said, to play off Ireland and challenge yourself against other teams in England. Would be really good. As a player, I'd rather do it maybe through like an FA side, because no disrespect to all the clubs, I think if you go off Ireland to play with your club, you are to say diluted a little bit, where if you go off with the Isle of Man, you've got the best 20 players, so you're giving yourself the best opportunity to perform and do as well as you can, rather than going with a kind of club side, which could be a little bit diluted, and you couldn't maybe not do as well as you could with obviously the FA side. But obviously every opportunity to play off Ireland and challenge yourself is good, is a step forward.
It talks there a little bit about the Stadia Improvement Fund. You joke about Corinthians wanting a new stand, but do you think that would be something that a lot of the clubs could take advantage of?
Yeah, I think that's good as well, isn't it? Obviously, if people can apply and get kind of grants and things like that and improve their facilities, I think obviously on the Isle of Man we're well ahead anyway. You know, if you go and look at another league across, the Isle of Man, the facilities are unbelievable. You just look at the bowl, you laugh about Corinthians, but you look at what they've done up there is amazing. You look at Peel, what they've done, that's great. You know, I think if you go into another league in England, we are miles ahead. Obviously, people moan over here about kind of floodlights and things like this, and okay, yeah, that's great, and it's always good to have kind of improvements. But I think we're miles ahead of most leagues in England.
I've got quite a few friends in football in England, and they come over and visit at various times of the year, and over the years they have done, and I'm fond to take them around and show them these facilities. And they get blown away by it. They cannot believe on the Isle of Man how lucky we are for facilities when you go around the grounds for a tiny little island, and the money that's been spent on the infrastructure for football clubs, for all sports. Like the NSC, I take a friend over there who's been involved in a Premier League football team, and he said to me, you won't get anything like that at county level anywhere around Britain, not even close to it. And so sometimes I think we get a bit ahead of ourselves over here, and people are a bit down on stuff, but when you get someone like that come over and tells you that, you think, you know what, we are in a good position, and the clubs are doing a lot of good work. You look at Colby's facilities, St John's facilities, there's probably 10 really, really good facilities and clubs on the island that would be probably better than a lot of the lower non-league teams in England in the way they ran and the infrastructure.
Tony, you're nodding away. What do you make of this idea?
Well, it's more with Frank, actually, I was going to think of. You played at Salford City, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, just explain Salford City's changing rooms. They were horrendous.
When we went there, yeah, it was terrible. And you think, look where they are. Obviously, maybe they've improved a lot now because they've had a load of money pumped into them. But when we first went there, when we played them just before kind of that, it was horrendous. It was like changing a portal cabin, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was bad. And when you look at it, the Neville boys, all the Man United, David Beckham and all that now running it, and that's improved immensely. But the thing is, with my FA hat on, the suggestion for 3 leagues came in because, you know, everyone is saying Manx football's finished and that's it. No, it isn't. Football is battling really hard in England. Lee'll know better than most that a lot of clubs are disappearing because whatever the sport's out of favour, but a lot of it is, you know, phones, get PlayStations and everything else, they're not bothering. But the opportunity to play football on the Isle of Man is there for everyone. That's what the Isle of Man FA have to provide. Lee is absolutely spot on with facility-wise, because when you go away and we play in the Interleague Cup and everything, some of the grounds don't even touch what we've got on the Isle of Man. And I wouldn't say it's a competition because clubs have budgets to work with, but every club committee is looking to make their facility as good as it can. And I know there's 2 or 3 at the moment that are in for Football Foundation. And when we went away to Wembley with the begging bowl, really, for our grant from the English FA, which isn't a lot, one of the main subjects was, how do you think Manx football could be improved? And ours was, allow our best team or teams to go into the FA Vase. And this is where this Step 7 has come from. And the Stadia grant, which is 20k, that's an awful lot. And when you look, that's, you know, given to you. You don't have to pay it back. And that's, you know, there for the 13 or 14 clubs, whatever we have to do to go into Step 7. So really, we need all the information there, then put it to the clubs, and then they can either go, Sean, with 3 leagues, or they want to go Step 7. Yes, Step 7 favours the Premiership sides a little bit more because the grant isn't available for the Division 2 sides, but it's progress, and it's, if we're going to make progress, then we've got to take a chance here and there, and this isn't, to me, it's not a little sort of gamble. It's a massive positive, and it's not only thanks to the English FA, they've finally allowed us to have a little bit of room to manoeuvre it.
Could there be some logistical issues getting on and off island? Travel can sometimes be a bit of a nightmare, as we know. Do you think there would be some problems, a bit more extra planning need to go into that aspect?
I always say this. I always look at it. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I look at the rugby. The rugby do it every week without fail, and they've done it every week. Okay, there's money involved to do it. But the rugby do it every week. There's a couple of rugby teams that do it every week, so it's not nothing ordinary. It's obviously hard because we've done it before the Isle of Man when we go in and you've got to be up early and you travel at you're up at 6 or 5. You travel. It's a long day. You're not eating properly and all this kind of stuff, and it all takes its toll on you in the end. But going back to it, it can be done, can't it? It's just how much people want to dedicate themselves to do it.
Now, this is slightly different to one of the previous proposals that have been put forward by the FA. How important is it that they do get this right?
Yeah, you know what is right? I don't know how you would judge right. Like Tony's just said something there, and let's look at it on a simplistic basis. You're talking about if it happens, they're going to get £260,000 or £280,000 given to Isle of Man football. Now, I don't see where there can be any negatives to that. Of course, there will be people in the second tier who will end up in the second tier and it won't benefit them. I understand that, but as you know, with the Isle of Man, you never keep everybody happy. In fact, you very, very rarely keep anyone happy, no matter what you do, without being funny. Always someone got to whinge about something. And so, you know what, if it's a step forward and you're talking about £250,000 investment in 13 or 14 football teams, sometimes that's what has to happen, you know. And let's judge it in 2 years. If it happens, let's give it a year or two and let's see the knock on it has, and then judge whether it's right or wrong. Because unfortunately, on the Isle of Man, we have a terrible tendency to start pulling stuff down before it's even happened, and that's sometimes why things don't ever get off the ground.
I think there's a fear of change.
Of course.
Just looking on the coaching, Lee, because you're a highly qualified coach. That's why you're doing the Ireland team.
I'm sure.
You paid me to say that. But why suddenly we're getting all this quality through? There's something right somewhere, because I'm looking at 17, 18-year-olds on Wednesday that look as if they were 30-year-olds playing. It was unbelievable.
They're rubbish till me and Paul got them. They're absolutely terrible. No. Do you know what? The reality is, listen, we've got a centre of excellence, development centre, whatever you want to call it. So we have an elite centre of what it is. The kids come through, they get some kind of structure. They get the best kids training together down there a couple of nights a week. So that is an environment to create excellence. Excellence on what level, I don't know, but it creates good players. That group of kids you're talking about there with Brido and them in, that little bulk of most of them come through together. You got to remember, Adam Long's playing at Wigan. Yep. Played in the first team, made his debut. We've got Sid Batty at college in England. They're good players. They're a good group of kids. You get them come through all the time. That was a very good group who made a massive decision to come to St George's at the time when they were the most dominant team in the island. They bought into the regime that was happening at St George's, and they got what I call all the rough edges knocked off them, because young kids can come in and be a little bit soft, a bit timid. That doesn't happen up at St George's, and never did under Chris. And I think you're seeing that group of kids there have got the mental toughness and strength to go into environments and not crumble under the pressure. And you've seen it with Lewis Bridson the other night. Yeah, Lewis went on the pitch, and you'd have thought he'd been playing there all his life. You know, he looked like a 30-year-old who played hundreds of times for the Isle of Man. Fantastic. And all the other kids, they were relishing the opportunity. And I think that for the certain amount of players that come to Geordie's, that was put into them straight away the minute they arrived there. This is how it's going to be. And you've got Jack Kamara, who's had experience at clubs in England, and he's in England now at Preston's development squad. They've got pedigree behind them, Tony, and when you put them in the right environments, it'll breed confidence, mental strength, all them things that it requires to perform like we did the other night against professional players. It was a night where people performed to where you would expect them to be. Can we do that consistently? Well, you'll have to play enough games to start to find that out. But it's sort of not a surprise in some ways, but in other ways, seeing the likes of Lewis come on at the age he is and perform, and then Jay and Ibo and Jack
Jacob Crook?
Jacob Crook's another exceptional one. Come through in a very good group though, and we've done a lot of work down the years with Michael Fitzmaurice, who's very good with the kids. Yeah. So he's had a good pathway there, and so there's pedigree behind him, but ultimately you don't know what's going to happen until you hit that level of football, and you start getting answers very quickly. And luckily, these kids are coming up with good answers, you know, and the likes of your Tom Woods, your Burnsy, they all come through that system. They've all been involved in sort of successful teams at their clubs, so they know what it's like to win. But when you bring them all together with the Isle of Man squad, me and Paul are trying to create an environment down there that's tough, and so that when you get into the games, it becomes the expectancy. It's not out of the ordinary. It's not a bridge too far. It's, well, we train like this every week. It's this intense. And so I think hopefully we're starting to come to fruition a little bit, the work we've been doing with them since we took over. And probably going back to when we got knocked out of the NLS, it was a kick in the teeth. It really was a kick in the teeth for us, for the players. And we had a complete change of tack then in where we were going after we had meetings and things. And hopefully now we're on that pathway forward where the players are loving what's happening. We're certainly loving being part of it. And anyone watching that game on Wednesday night, you couldn't get enough of that if I was a supporter. I'd be down every week watching it, if I could be.
Sean was saying at the start of the programme, any problem areas, goalkeeping situation has been a bit of a problem area, but that seemed to get sorted out a little bit on Wednesday.
I think we've got 3 or 4 good keepers. I think obviously they'll go through dips in confidence, which is what happens with any goalkeeper. Look at David De Gea, gone from being one of the world's best apparently to lately. You'd think he'd never played football sometimes when you watch him, but we've now got, you're looking at Dean, Sam, who's took a step away from football for personal reasons, very good keeper. You've got Killy from Corinthians, who on his days very good. Glenn has been magnificent this year. What a great move that's been for him to St George's. He's really come of age this season, playing every week, week in, week out, and training with the Isle of Man. Quirky is exceptional. He's had an injury problem, unfortunately, of late, so he wasn't involved the other night, but we're actually getting to a little bit of a precipice here. We've got 4 or 5 keepers fighting for 2 spots, and a bit of a headache for Paul, really, to sort of sieve out which ones are going to be the ones that are lucky enough to go to the Island Games, and might be decided maybe by an injury or something. Could be, what determines it. But going forward, I think it's looking really bright for the keepers in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Does it help the situation as well, getting Paul O'Brien back in? Seems to have.
Fantastic. I mean, Terry was down there doing some work with him and, really enthusiastic and that, but young and not got the experience that Paul's got, and there is probably the respect as well that Paul has, because Paul's fantastic with the keepers, and since he's come back in, you can see their training's gone up quite a few notches, and obviously that then helps in the games, taking on board, and he's always giving them feedback at half time, at full time, before the games. Having him in the changing rooms makes a hell of a difference, and Paul's a lovely fellow. He's just great to have around, full stop. He's a great personality, and so yeah, it may have been a problem area in the past, but I don't foresee it being one going forward, hopefully.
Sean, I know you want to ask Frank who's going to win tomorrow against Peel.
Why not? Peel versus St Mary's, then. It has been a bit of a rivalry this season. Generally, which one can you see coming out on top there?
No pressure, Frank.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's us this week. Yeah, I don't know. Confidence is high in our club, you know what I mean? After Saturday, obviously we got beat in the final, but we walked away, and I said to the lads at the end of the game, it's a tough one to take, because I think we could have won it. I think it was in our hands. I've been in finals before when we've been beat. Corinthians beat us last year in the Railway Cup final 4-0, and you sit in the change rooms and you can hold your hands up and say we were beat, and there was nothing. But that one was real tough on Saturday to take. So we're going down there tomorrow to hopefully put that right, and hopefully we're in the next round.
You got your shooting boots with you?
That was the problem, wasn't it?
Use them up on Wednesday.
Of course, you did get the 2 goals on Wednesday. I'm very happy with that, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely obviously always great to score for the Isle of Man. I would have probably, I would have took them out. Do you know what I mean? Definitely, it's one of them. Hopefully I can score a couple tomorrow, as well.
We are coming up towards the end of the programme. Just quickly, though, we were talking a little bit earlier about the younger players coming through. How important is the league for that and for them to get the opportunity at clubs? Yeah,
massively. I mean, them lads, 4 out of the 5 there that we mentioned at St George's, and there's a bit of an exodus this year at St George's, and some of them kids may have been looking like Lewis Brighton and thinking, well, I don't know whether I'm going to be a regular next year. I don't know whether to stay around. And by the fact that players actually left and they technically became slightly weakened, Lewis has ended up playing all season. And I know for his development, you could never, ever state how important that's been for him. The same with Jay up there. Joel had played quite a bit anyway, but playing football week in and week out in a first team in tough environments is the best way to develop children, without a shadow of a doubt.